Joining me tonight in Emerge is Mitchell from Brisbane band The Baby Breaks. Thanks for joining me today, man. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me in.
No worries, dude. And so, who are the band's most prominent influences?
For me personally, when I go to writing, early Kings of Leon, I think a lot of people pick up on the Strokes, the White Stripes, Pixies, but then also a lot of old blues, and I love Johnny Cash, and some of that older country too sometimes comes through. I'm not sure if people notice too much, but it seems to just be a good combination with that early indie rock. Kings of Leon sort of do the crossover from, almost southern country rock to
Mm.
mainstream rock, which is why I love them so much.
And so, the band influences changed at all since starting it, or has it been pretty solid since?
I think it varies occasionally. Like sometimes I might, if I'm writing a softer song, it gets a bit more, like a song like Bedhead, it's a lot more ballad heavy, a bit more about my
Mm.
emotions, which comes from that, Johnny Cash, old blues sort of music. But then if it's sort of just an aggressive, fun song, it sort of comes from that rock and roll side of things. So it really just depends song to song.
Yeah, fair. And earlier this month, you guys dropped your new single, Russ is No Role Model. What can you tell
Yeah.
us about that track?
It's a strange one because I can normally describe what the songs are about, but Russ is sort of like an alter ego of sorts of me, I guess, and
Okay.
it all started as a bit of a joke, and whenever I get a bit too crazy or party a bit too hard, I sort of become this other character. And the song's about sort of that living a hedonistic lifestyle and trying to enjoy yourself, but then also the inevitable crash that goes with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can have a lot of fun. I guess that's what the chorus is, but the verses sort of represent the downtrodden weekday Mitchell, I guess.
Fair. And was it written around the same time as your debut EP, or is it a lot more recent?
I think it's a lot more reason because with the EP, it took us so long to release it just because we're, classic new band poor. So we'd sat on those for probably, I reckon I probably wrote the song. The EP had been out maybe a year. Like the content had already been written for a year once I'd written Russ. So it was
Okay.
definitely a big of evolution in songwriting from the EP, that's for sure.
Mm. And how was the actual recording process for this latest single?
It was good, man. We went to a different studio this time. We went to Studio Circuit on Gold Coast with a guy called Justin.
Oh, okay.
And we had Rob from Bedlam Studios. He's a drummer for Bugs. He helped out with mixing, and it was very different to the EP because EP we went in on the first day and effectively recorded all 5 songs in a day,
Gee.
and then just sort of we went back and tracked just little bits and pieces of vocals because I actually went in with like bronchitis. So
Oh, no way.
when you hear some of the screaming on one of the or two of the tracks on the EP, we sort of took advantage of the broken voice and then you hear some cleaner ones, and that's when I went back and sort of had to let myself recover a little bit. But
Gee,
yeah, with this
so
one,
this recording process was a lot more comfortable? Or?
yeah, we sort of spent one day recording 5 songs, and then when we went to do Russ is No Role Model, we spent one day doing one song.
Mm.
And I think you can really see the difference. Like the first
Jeez.
one's very lo-fi and grungy, whereas this is a lot more refined.
Mm. And so, do you record the songs live, or?
With the EP, we did just about everything, including vocals and guitar. And with this one, we went a bit different. We went drums and bass just because of the time signatures and just it is a lot more intricate. I think it sounds simple at first glance, but it is a lot more intricate than other things. And we realised that if we wanted to get the production really, really tight, it was better off we'll go bass drums and then we'll, lay down the rhythm guitar and then we'll get the sax and then we'll do the vocals and lead guitar.
Okay. And how did the actual writing process change for this track since the first 5 songs?
I think I come back from Blues Fest and I'd just been listening to some really cool bands that I grew up on a lot, but sort of had neglected. And I come back, I think it might have been the same night I got back. I just went into the room and had this like little hook in my head. I just played it over and over and over until it was sort of just, I just went, this has to be a song.
Mm.
And that's sort of the chorus where you'll hear like a dun dun and then really fuzzy wild guitars. And then I went, well, I'm going to have to write a song around this. So then I sort of got the bass player to just pluck the notes and I never really played anything. I sort of just sung along to 4 notes. And so the verses are very empty and very sparse. And then that's sort of, so the chorus has a much more effective kick.
And did the track come together pretty easily?
Yeah, I think so. The intro, to be honest, I didn't really want the intro to start with on the song because it's in a 5/4 and 2 of the boys in the band are really into jazz and they're jazz students. and we'd sort of had it live to get people excited and maybe confuse them a bit. But we went to the studio as sort of like it was a bit of a debate on my end, and in hindsight, I've enjoyed it. I like the difference. I like how it confuses people, and they might not be too sure what they're in for, and then it goes back to that classic Baby Breaks rock and roll sound.
All right, we'll be back in a moment with the Baby Breaks part 2 of that interview with Mitch from Baby Breaks by Callan from this very show. But what you got to deal with right now is the new song from the Baby Breaks. Russ is no role model, and Russ is no role model.
Yes.
And that was an awesome song by the Baby Breaks. Russ is no role model, and a very offensive title to some people on the show, but I love it anyway. Coming up now is part 2 of Callan's interview with Mitch from the band. You're listening to Emerge.
What kind of things can we expect from the launch show at the Zoo on the 6th of March?
I'm hoping just really good performances. I think we've got some damn good openers, Big Dinner the Fools and Plastic Reality. And it's a bit of a mix of music too. We didn't just go, let's get 4 rock bands. So I think we want to try and broaden our horizons a little bit. And I don't know, maybe cross-share some fans, if that makes sense. You know, try and make the scene in Brisbane not so much, okay, you like, you know, this sort of reggae rock, you like this sort of pop. Like, why not just get a mix of bands and see how it goes?
And
so I think with that, we're also going to get some guest performances up, some people from other Brisbane bands that we're pretty good friends with to join us for some guitar solos and just little things like that, I think, just to get people a bit excited, some people they might recognise.
Sweet. And how did you actually go about selecting these artists? Was it just bands that you'd seen of a variety?
Yeah, word of mouth as well, and just going to other bands and seeing certain shows, and I think the decision sort of come from there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, really, just through friends and just seeing bands. And I was really unsure who to pick because sometimes you want to pick the same bands that you always play with. You know, it's really common because you become good friends with them, and I think we've tried to go away from that technique this time. And I know the guys, I know a few guys from each band, but I think it's kind of cool that we don't know each other that well, and hopefully can sort of, you know, bond and hopefully play some more shows together.
Yeah, for sure. And just going back to the debut EP briefly, is there a story behind the EP name, Powdered Milk Party? Out of curiosity.
It's a legal name. Let's put it that way. It's a play on like a party term that was sort of made up once at a house party. There's no real meaning to it, but it's a line out of the opening track, Be Free. So it's sort of, the line just says, there's a powdered milk party at mine. And the whole play on that is, you know, drugs are bad and I'm lactose intolerant. So it's a very strange reference, but yeah, it makes sense in our little circle. And for everyone else, I think they just think it's a cool sounding name.
Yeah, fair. And how early into the actual recording process did you have that name?
What was that, sorry?
How early into the process of the EP did you have that name?
I think I had it pretty early on, but I don't think the boys were too happy about it. Because I'm the older one in the band, so I'm like at least I think 5 years older than the other guys. And at the time when we were writing the songs, you know, they'd just sort of moved to Brisbane from school, and I think they're like first to second year uni, and I think them releasing music was something that implies, you know, illegal activities. Are a bit hesitant, but I managed to convince them and just tell them to blame me if anyone gets annoyed.
Yeah, fair.
I'll take the rap.
And which track on the release was the most difficult to complete, either writing or recording wise?
I think One Handed Clap was probably the most, wasn't the hardest to write, but maybe we sort of pushed to the limits a bit with an, you know, intro and a bit of a time change. But I think with actual recording, Mile at Home, the chorus vocals, because I absolutely scream like crazy. Yeah. I had bronchitis when we first went in. It was terrible. Like the tracks we got back that day were terrible. So when I went back in the next time, and I'd had a few months to, like, you know, practice a little bit and get rid of the sickness, that was still a challenge. But I think I've really, you know, nailed them as best I could.
Yeah. Nice. And I know it probably changes from day to day, but at the moment at least, do you have a personal favorite track from the EP or one that you're just most proud of?
I think like lyrically, I pride myself on writing pretty good lyrics, but being in a rock band, that's not always the main focus. So I think I love Bedhead because of that, because it really is lyric heavy and it means a lot to me. Like every word and every verse and every line when I sing it, even now, sort of evokes some sort of emotion in me. And I think there's been a few big shows we've played now where the audience are actually singing it back. And I think for me that'll always be, the coolest thing ever. So I think, that's probably always going to be one of my favorites. But then if I'm in a bit of a mood or I want a bit of attitude, I think One Handed Clap has that ability to sort of just slap you across the face.
And we'll be right back with the last part of my interview with Mitch from the Baby Breaks. Coming up now, this is the track we just talked about. This is My Old Home. You're listening to Emerge on 1197 AM, digital radio, and phoenixradio.com.au. And that was the Baby Breaks with My Old Home, taken from their debut EP, Powdered Milk Party. And coming up now, this is the last part of my interview with Mitch. You're listening to Emerge on 1197 AM, digital radio, and phoenixradio.com.au. When actually writing, do you usually have the riff first, or when do the lyrics come into it?
Sometimes I just have books and just scraps of paper everywhere, just lyrics, or like notes on my phone. I'll just think of some lyrics, but otherwise sometimes I'll just make a riff up and just start singing nonsense and go, oh, that's a cool line, and then sort of work out something that makes sense from there. Yeah. I think a lot of the songs sound like they have a lot more meaning than they do, but sometimes I just sort of go, oh, that's a clever line. How do I make that a bit more moody or depressing or broody? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And which release have you listened to the most over the past 12 months? If there's one that stands out. Oh, of other people's.
Of other people's. That's how I try not to listen to my own music. The Saboteurs, Jack White's one of his other bands called the Raconteurs. In Australia, they're called the Saboteurs because of some legal thing.
Oh.
I've seen them at Blues Fest, and their first album in like 11 years. I think it's called Born and Raised. Honestly, don't quote me on that at all, but yeah, I've absolutely smashed that. Pretty much anything that Jack White touches, I listen to death to.
Have you heard his recent collaboration with Tenacious D?
Yeah, I have actually. What was it, Jack Gray or whatever it is?
Yeah, something like that.
We're living in such a strange reality, aren't we, man?
I know, dude.
Just everything that's happening in the world, like, of course that happened. You know what I mean? No one even blinks an eyelid anymore about these things. It's amazing.
Makes sense to me.
Oh, yeah, it was bound to happen, I'm sure.
Yeah. And who is some of your favorite local bands or releases at the moment, if anything stands out?
I was on I can't remember what the event was called. I really should. I went to this. There's like a boat in the river in Brisbane, and it was like metal and rock bands. And I'm not really a metalhead, but I somehow got dragged along to that on a Sunday, slightly intoxicated. And Blue Savannah Underworld are a Brizzy rock band that I've been seeing for years, and they're not as big as they should be because they're unbelievably awesome. So I think there's some guys I'm really going to keep an eye out on. Like their live performances are some of the best I've seen in Brisbane, in the rock scene for sure. Cripple Reach are some of my best friends, like musically and as people. They're just awesome. I think they're going to do really big things.
Yeah, agreed.
And just off the top of my head, as always, Big Whoops, big fan of those guys. It's always hard to find some. Yeah, it's really hard. Well, not hard, but I'm always looking for heavy rock bands that put on a cool show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think Blue Savannah Underworld and Big Whoops are great for doing that.
Agreed. And what else can we expect from the Baby Breaks in the not too distant future?
I think instead of going for the EP again, I think we're just going to go for more singles, push those to see if we can get more traction. Because it seems like our singles always seem to do better than when we release the EP. Like obviously, we have like a really good fan base and we get some good streams and stuff. But when we released the first two singles, they really did blow up. So I think focus more on one song and really getting that out there, touring more hopefully, and just trying to build bigger crowds and build more of a scene together in Brisbane.
Good call. And lastly, if you only had a few words to describe the latest single, which few words would you use?
I think compared to the first EP, it's still got the dirt there, but I think more refined. I think we're a lot more proud of it. And I think I can't remember who I was saying it to the other day, but they asked me to describe it, and I think it's like just a pleasant kick to the teeth. It's it's not like this unbelievably outrageous rock song, but when it kicks, and I'm stoked on that.
Of course, that's all right. If that doesn't sell you, man, nothing will. Thanks for joining me, Mitch.
No worries, man. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. See you at the zoo.
Yeah, see you at the zoo, man. Catch you later.